Well, let's get more now on Brexit talks, as the Foreign Secretary tells Sky News that Sunday will be a point of finality for Brexit trade talks if the EU does not move substantially in negotiations. Last night, Boris Johnson shared a 3-hour dinner with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in the hope of breaking months of deadlock. Well, I'm joined now by Nigel Farage, leader of the Brexit Party. But is it the Brexit Party or is it Reform UK now, Mr Farage?
Well, we've applied to the Electoral Commission to change the name to Reform UK, and we're awaiting an answer, which we expect by next Wednesday. So I think technically you're quite right to say Brexit Party for now.
OK. So we heard from Ursula von der Leyen in the last few minutes, really, last half hour. We've also heard from both the UK and the EU that they have no-deal contingency plans in place that will allow planes to continue flying, potentially keep fishing going. Are we now in a position where no deal looks worse than a bad deal?
Well, let me just say that the contingency planning from the European Commission on fishing is that things carry on the same next year as they have this year, which would mean the French getting 90% of the haddock quota in the southwest. So I think that's actually a huge insult yet again. The position's very simple. The European Union will not change their position. Why? Because in October last year, Boris Johnson went to Brussels and signed something that we in this country call the withdrawal agreement, but which they call the new EU treaty. And treaties in Brussels are rather like the Bible, and they're not going to budge. And so Boris Johnson, having signed up to a set of wholly unsuitable conditions, but he was able to sell it in the UK because we were suffering from Brexhaustion, and here he was, it's an oven-ready deal, it's all going to be great. And then when he got to the general election, and he was under pressure, he then effectively contradicted what he'd signed a few weeks before. So this is the mess we're in after 4.5 years of a Conservative Prime Minister. And Boris Johnson's choice now on Sunday, if indeed that is the deadline, although one does notice that word is a fairly movable feast. But if Sunday is the deadline, Boris Johnson's choice is simple. Either he goes along with what he signed in October last year in Brussels, or we do walk away.
It's all his fault then, is it?
Well, I'm not saying it's all his fault, but I think that the European Union, from the start, have never really wanted to talk about a free trade agreement. Indeed, even on Wednesday this week, Ursula von der Leyen was saying, I look forward to meeting Boris Johnson to discuss our partnership agreement in capital letters. They don't want a simple free trade agreement. And I'm afraid what Boris signed up to wasn't a simple free trade agreement. If Boris Johnson wanted a Canada-style relationship, he should never have signed what he called his oven-ready deal. So there is fault on both sides.
When you look at what potentially could happen at the end of this year, we already know that there are big delays at the ports, real problems there. We know that lots of lorry drivers have returned to their homes in Eastern Europe. Now, that is partly due to COVID, not entirely due to Brexit. But there is huge concern from all sorts of industries, from the transport industry. We saw a report out at the weekend from the Cabinet Office that was leaked that showed that fuel prices and food prices inevitably will go up in the months following. Do you feel any sense of remorse? Do you feel that perhaps if you hadn't started all of this, we wouldn't be in this position?
No, we should have left 4 years ago. We should have left 4 years ago. And whatever short-term bumps in the road there may or may not have been, should have been dealt with then. I think it's been handled.
There are people who are worried about losing their livelihoods, and it's been a heck of a year for all of us, hasn't it, with COVID? This is more than bumps in the road for so many people.
It certainly has. Of that, there is no question. Look, when it comes to transport chaos, Kent is used to that. Operation Stack with 30-mile queues on the M20, I'm afraid is a common occurrence because we get gales in the channel or we get the French fishermen protesting. We are used to that. But we are living in the 21st century where any sort of customs declaration can simply be done on an iPhone. You can see that on the American-Canadian border. It's not that difficult. When it comes to businesses that would suffer a short-term hit on tariffs, well, look at it this way. If the EU charges us tariffs and we charge them tariffs, we'll be better off to the tune of £7, £8, £9 billion a year. So we will be able, in the short term, to help anybody that is disadvantaged. But remember this, all the terrible predictions, economic predictions about what would go wrong if we even dared to vote Brexit. None of those have come true. Any short-term problem is of course, dwarfed anyway by the pandemic. And by being free of the single market, by being able to set our own regulation, I'm 100% confident that that's the path to a more prosperous Britain in the next few years.
But the problem is we haven't really left yet, have we? The deadline hasn't really been reached, so how do we know?
Well, we were told that even a vote to leave would lead to economic disaster, which very clearly it did not. And we've got to remember that the Eurozone is only 15%, 15% of global GDP. There is a great big world out there.
Fishing is only less than 1% of ours. So why do you keep going on about it so much?
Because we voted to take back control of our laws and our borders. And part of that, of course, are our territorial waters. It may be small in economic terms, but in terms of symbolism, it's very powerful indeed.
You've tried repeatedly to stand as an MP and failed. You tried at UKIP, you tried with the Brexit Party. Do you think you're going to have any success with Reform UK?
Do you know what? I'm the only person you will ever speak to who has won 2 national elections leading 2 different parties. Never in British history has anyone done that before, which I did in the 2014 and 19 European elections. When it comes to breaking first past the post in Westminster, it is very, very difficult. The Brexit Party, as you know, fought a by-election in Peterborough last year. We lost to Labour by 600 votes. We fought a long court case over postal votes, a theme which is quite familiar in American parlance at the moment. It is difficult. There is no question.
Are you saying that the democratic system in the UK is just like the democratic system in America, according to Trump, really?
I think that where there is large-scale postal voting, there will always be fraud. Of that, there is absolutely no doubt. And you've only got to look at the number of people who've gone to prison in the last 20 years because of it. Look, I'm under no illusions that to break the closed shop of British politics with this voting system is a very, very difficult thing to do. But what I also know is that UKIP had the most profound political change on Britain. I mean, literally, a Conservative party that was Remain is now a Conservative party that is Leave, and it was the pressure of UKIP over many, many years that did that. So there are lots of ways of winning in politics without necessarily winning much.
The most straightforward way of winning is getting more people to vote for you, and it seems that you're not being able to achieve that within a constituency. It is a simple matter of persuading more people to tick your name than to tick somebody else's.
Well, it just doesn't work like that, because under first past the post...
It does work like that.
No, it doesn't actually, because under first past the post, we tend to vote for the party that we dislike the least. But the point I'm making, smashing the first past the post system is really, really hard. But the point I'm making is that UKIP only ever won 2 seats in the Westminster Parliament, but completely changed British politics and the course of this country for the next few years. So if we get a sellout, from Boris Johnson, and let's see what happens, but already we see big concessions on Northern Ireland, the acceptance we're going to stay part of the European arrest warrant, the acceptance that the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg will still be there. If we carry on down that route, and this is a sellout, I don't think we're just going to walk away, because we're not.
OK, Nigel Farage, always interesting to talk to you. Thanks very much.